back to the series of Snowflake. So, in last class I have discussed gave you some information regarding what Snowflake actually means is, and now we'll be talking about the actual architecture of Snowflake. Okay, what actually it is means architecture is, it is the combination of shared disk with shared nothing system. What does that means? Shared disk is, it has information that can be shared by all system. Okay, so there will be some head and the people will share the information that has been given, so that is shared disk. Whereas share nothing system means is processing queries with MPP. What MPP is? Massively parallel processing. Okay, you process queries parallelly. So now let's talk about the architecture, what all it has. The layer 1, it has cloud service layer, and layer 2 it has compute layer, and then it comes to base storage. Okay, layer 1, that is the compute layer, is also known as brain of, it is also known as the brain layer. So what actually the layer 1 does is, what actually the cloud service layer does, it gives the authentication and then the access control. It is like the biometric system in the office that we use. Okay, when you share your credentials, or while like example I'm telling, when you share your credential, or like while entering, if the credential is incorrect, then you'll stop outside the premises. That is what actually cloud service do. It manages the infrastructures and the metadata. It performs query parsing and optimizing the queries. It manages the data security, including the security for data sharing as well. Metadata required for query optimization or like data filtering are also stored in the query in these cloud services. Just like that I have said, you can see it provides security, data management, it stores metadata, it optimizes the queries that you write in. Okay, now let's come to layer 2. Layer 2 is compute layer. Here you can create a warehouse. See, virtual warehouse can be created from the size of XS to XL, that is 6XL. You can create up until there, and each and every warehouse that you create will be having a separate credits according to the size. Okay, what actually virtual warehouse is? Virtual warehouse is also known as like the compute layer. Here what actually happens is SQL queries are executed. Here the SQL queries were being optimized. Here it can be executed. And then the computation is provided via the virtual warehouse. What data warehouse? I know people are confused between the data warehouse, virtual warehouse, and also. Let me clear. Data warehouse is where we store the data. That is data warehouse. Okay, virtual warehouses, it will help you to load the data, query the data. Data warehouse is where you store the data. Virtual warehouse, it helps you in loading the data and then the querying the data. I hope you guys got to know the difference between data warehouse and virtual warehouse. So now let's see what VM VMwares in warehouse are like. Okay, VM actually virtual mesh. One sec. Okay, so what actually virtual machine, that is VM, is? It is software based computer. It runs inside the physical computer. Okay, it has its own OS, might be Windows, might be Linux, like that. When we actually use virtual machine is when we need to do testing, or like when you run the server, or like for cloud computing. This is virtual machine means. VMwares are, it is a company or like a software platform that creates and manages the virtual machine. Okay, here it is a platform that creates and manages the virtual machine. It is a like I would tell it is a tool to create virtual machines. This is basically used when you need to data center or like when you need a private cloud. And then the warehouse, that actually as usual virtual warehouse in Snowflake is a compute power. It is only used when you need to run SQL queries. This is mainly used for like analytics, BI reports, or like for the large data queries. Uh, to make it easy, I would tell virtual machine is like a virtual computer. VMware are like virtualization platform that are used to create and manage the virtual machines, whereas virtual warehouse are like the compute resource in Snowflake. They are used in executing SQL queries. Okay, virtual machine is a software. Okay, whereas virtual machine wares are like the tools that make virtual machines. And when it comes to virtual warehouse, it is query processing engine. Hope you guys are clear with layer 1 and layer 2. Now let's talk about layer 3, that is the database storage layer. So just like the name suggests, the database storage, it stores the structured, semi-structured or like unstructured data or the raw data that it gets as input. Okay, it is responsible for storing all the data securely and efficiently in the cloud. Okay, or like it has all the table, schema, database, structured, semi-structured data, they all are physically stored. It stores data in the cloud object storage, not on the local server. Okay, like AWS has S3, Azure has Azure Blob Storage, and GCP has Google Cloud Storage. Okay, stored data will always be compressed and encrypted. And the other part is this, the storage also has some types. It has columnar as well as micro partition. Columnar type of storage is where you store the data column wise, okay, so that it fasters the query analysis. Okay, and like it makes the data get stored in a structured manner, so it becomes faster for you to optimize or like to run or like to go through. The other one is micro partition. Micro partition, here the data is automatically divided into small partitions. Okay, like the partition size varies from 550 to 500 MB, and each micro partition has its metadata that has minimum value, maximum value, or the column stats in it. Okay, I hope you guys are clear with the architecture of Snowflake. I would repeat once again, like some like what are actual uses. So in cloud service, what happens is, it is also called the brain layer. Okay, this is the control layer of Snowflake. What it actually does is, it is used for user authentication and then the access control, or it is used in query optimization and helps in metadata management. Okay, it helps in query scheduling. Okay, you don't actually see this layer directly. Okay, actually it checks permission, it creates a query plan, it sends work to compute. This is what is done by cloud service layer. When it comes to computation layer, it mainly executes query. Okay, this optimize query and this mainly executes the query. Okay, the key concept that we actually use here is virtual warehouse. Here what a virtual warehouse, it is a cluster of compute resource. Okay, it is a cluster of compute resource. Multiple warehouse can run at the same time and each warehouse work independent of each other. So if there is any crash in one, that will not affect the working of other. Here it helps in running the queries, it process the data. Okay, here there is no data actually stored, it is a sort of temporary storage, I would tell. Now when it comes to third layer, that is the storage, database storage layer, this is where actually the data lives in. All the raw data that is taken as input, which has, it can be, that will be stored in the form of tables, internal storage, micro partition, that I have already said guys about. What it actually does is like partitioning the data. If it is a huge data, you column storage, encrypt the data that it has in, and it centralizes the cloud storage. This storage is shared by all the warehouses. So in the end, Snowflake architecture consists of three layers: cloud service for management and optimization, computation layer for virtual warehouse for query execution, and then the storage layer for centralized secure data storage. I hope you guys are clear with the architecture of Snowflake.